So it was a very big turning point in my life where I had to decide, do I go live in San Francisco, work full time, have a salary, have benefits, and have it, made? Or do I drop it and go and do what I actually want to do, freelance production design in Atlanta, and just hope it works? And that was a very scary step, but I ended up deciding that, I want to be a production designer for feature films. That's the ultimate goal. So I'm being offered that. I should go.
My name is West Gibbons, and welcome back to the Tungsten Originals podcast. You just heard part of my conversation with production designer and painter Jenna Tooley. We discussed how her experience as a fine artist influences her work on productions, the 2 feature films she's working on as a production designer, and how she's pursuing a career across multiple disciplines. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy episode 73 of the Tungsten Originals podcast. Jenna, welcome to the podcast. How's it going?
Hi, good. How are you? I'm glad to be on.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to have you on. I reached out to you a few months ago about being on, so I'm glad we finally got to sit down and schedule this. You have had an exciting career so far, and I know you've got some exciting projects in the future. You're working on a myriad of things right now that I'm excited to dive into and learn about, because I haven't really I think this is the first time we've actually spoken. So this will be, so I'll be learning along with the audience, which will be fun. But before we get into all that, I want to learn about how you became a filmmaker and a painter and a production designer, all that kind of stuff. So, take me back to the beginning. When did this start becoming a huge part of your life?
Okay, so I started oil painting in 2nd grade. That was kind of, I guess, my origin story. I was in a classroom full of all my peers were elderly women, and it was just me sitting in a corner painting. And my mom signed me up for the wrong class, so it was an older class. I started oil painting, and my whole life I pretty much was like, that's what I want to do. I want to be a studio oil painter, contemporary portrait painter. And then about in, I think, my senior year of high school, I had this sudden realization that directors and filmmakers exist outside of Steven Spielberg, and I was like, oh wait, people have to go on to set. So I was like, that could be cool. So when I was a junior, actually, I was looking at art schools, and SCAD came up on my radar, but it was kind of lower on my list. And then randomly my mom took me to a SCAD seminar in the city. And I didn't really want to go because I wasn't really excited. And then it was the first time I ever saw an art school being presented to me. And immediately I was like, yeah, okay, I'm going. And so I reached out to the lacrosse coach, and I got recruited for lacrosse, actually.
Oh, wow.
And so I played on the team my freshman year. And on my recruiting trip for the team, I met some filmmakers, and it kind of sparked oh, maybe I should do that too. So I originally went to SCAD as a double major for painting and film, and then quickly forgot about the film and just disregarded it. And was like, no, I'm a painter. Fought with it pretty hard. I was like, no, my dreams can't change. I won't let them. And then finally I just was, on a couple different film sets, and I was like, this is really, really awesome. I love the collaborative aspect of it. I love, being around people. I'm more social than I think sitting in a studio all day and painting to myself. So it just seemed like the right fit. And then I just took off from there.
Wow. So whenever you are on those sets, do you just like being on set in general, or are you because I obviously know you're a production designer, you've also directed things. So were you already finding early on that you were drawn to directing or production design, or just any other part of the crew?
Yeah, I would say originally I walked onto set and I was just happy to be there. And I had some people on set kind of point me to areas they thought that I would like. I said I loved art. And so the first set I was ever on, it was a party scene. And we were just throwing around bottles and making it kind of look like a mess. And I was like, oh, this is a job. That's cool. And so immediately I was like, this is what I want to do. I'm going to design the sets. And ever since then, that was my first set. And then I want to say my third set was the feature nesting dolls in Virginia.
Oh, wow.
And so I was,
that is,
I was really
what
thrown
a
into the
trajectory
deep end.
that is.
Yeah,
Wow.
I was really thrown into the deep end. And like the other, few sets beforehand, I was just there. And then suddenly I was art director on a feature shooting, for 18 days straight. And it was, quite the adventure. And then from there, I just kept doing production design, and I kind of taught myself along the way. I mean, I would, look up interviews of production designers, get books, and, I never really switched to the production design major. So everything I learned was just through exploration and trial and error. And yeah.
So I want to dive into the fact that you are both like a 2D visual artist as a painter, but also work in film, which is obviously like very different art forms, but I'm sure there's a lot of crossover. So how do you think your like starting off as a painter and that experience and like that formal education helps you as a production designer, and I guess vice versa?
Yeah. Right. I think it helps incredibly. I mean, I was already learning the basic design principles from a young age.
Yeah.
And, understanding a lot about color theory and composition, as well as like materials. And even though they're incredibly different materials, there's like a professionalism that you need to learn in every medium you do. So painting, it was, the right canvases, the right materials, the right paints, just understanding of what you're working with. And that translates incredibly to production design and art direction, because it really matters the materials you're using to give the right feel and the right look. So I find it translating, across the board. I think I'm a better production designer and director because I'm a painter, and I think I'm a better painter because I'm a production designer and director. So
do you find similarities in how you approach a concept and then execute that concept for a painting versus a director coming to you with a script to design a film? Because again, like you were saying, painting, what is so interesting to me about all of this is like painting, it's just you, like you alone in a studio for forever, I'm sure it seems like. And then film, you're leading a team, you're working with like directors and DPs and everybody, because you're designing everything on screen and you're leading people. So like, how does that contrast like play out in how you carry yourself as a painter and as a filmmaker?
Yeah. Surprisingly, they are very similar. It's starting with an idea, it's starting with a concept, doing some sketches or finding some inspiration. And then it's looking, deeper into the meaning in a painting. What am I trying to portray?
Right.
In a script, what is the director trying to portray? And then, then you go to the next step. I'll do a full render for a painting. I'll do a full render for a set. And, you break down piece by piece. And they are very similar. Another aspect about production design that I think gets blown over when most people talk about production design is the logistics and the management. You have to be a very good manager to be a production designer. I mean, that is, I think, one strong suit that I have because I'm a painter. And, I, as a painter, it's up to me to do everything. I have to manage my time. I have to manage clients. I have to, manage my work, and then, document it afterwards. And the same with production design is it's a lot of managing, and much more like large scale in production design. You're managing a team of people, you're managing every single, aspect of the department. But I do find that because I have, 18 years experience as a painter, I had time to really just figure out, time management within myself is very important.
Yeah, I think I will always be learning that when it comes to my own career. So take me back to Nesting Dolls a little bit. Was that like kind of a tent pole film for you at? I guess I shouldn't call it film school because you didn't technically go to film school, but at art school, because I feel like I talked to I interview a lot of people, and just yesterday I was doing an interview and was talking to my producer Reagan about like the films in her career that were like, this stood out because of this reason. With that being only like your third set, that must have been an incredible learning experience. Can you, one, I know, I'm sure there are people who aren't SCAD people that don't know about the film, but so can you explain a little bit about the film and then take me to that learning experience?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it was probably the biggest learning curve I've ever had in my life. So it was a psychological thriller. It's actually out on Amazon Prime, I believe.
Okay, sweet.
Rent it. But a psychological thriller about some sorority girls that have an accident and have to kind of grapple with that. It was written and directed by Robbie Snow. And Katie Wilkerson was the production designer. And I was originally brought on as the props master. So it was a crew of, I want to say, about 20 SCAD kids that independently, apart from SCAD, made this feature. We all went up to Gloucester, Virginia, and lived there for about a month and shot it. And I think it was a lot of ours kind of first experience of making something that big. And I was young at the time. I was, I think I was 19. It was very, this was my first pretty much big set, first set where I had any responsibility, honestly.
Right. And again, it's a feature. Like, it's
a feature, right?
That's awesome.
I went from props to, there was only 2 of us in the art department. We had to do everything, figure out everything. Right. And so I definitely learned a lot about continuity, how you have to keep things the same across the board. And then just the planning that goes into it. We didn't really have any planning. We had a week of prep. And that was where we broke down the entire script and see what we needed in each shot and how much like effort goes into like the pre-production, except we had to, fast track it and make it into a week. But yeah, it was a great experience, and definitely learned a lot of like set etiquette that I had no idea. People got on us for closed-toed shoes, things like that, where I just was like, would not have thought about it. But yeah, definitely a big learning experience. But it definitely cemented in my head, like, this is what I want to do. Despite the really long hours and like how crazy it was that we were there shooting it, I was like, this is awesome. Like, I want to do this.
So how soon after that did you start directing your own films, or were they before? Like, kind of what's the timeline there?
So Nesting Dolls was 2017 when I was right after my freshman year. I then spent a year designing films, and in 2018, in my spring quarter, I decided I want to direct. So, I wrote Fuzzite Fighters in the winter and shot it in spring, and that was my first film. And then I waited another, I think, 2 years to direct my second.
So I want to dive into Fuzzite Fighters because I love it. Just looks so like a fun project to be a part of, like obviously fun to watch, but also just like, a good experience for everybody. So what was it that interested you in being a director? Because obviously that is, there's more control, but, you also, I assume, worked with a production designer, or were you the production designer as well?
I was also the production designer. I've designed every film I've made so far. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. So, take me to that. Like, explain what the film is about, and that whole process.
Well, originally when I discovered film was a thing that's a possibility, I did want to be a director. And then I kind of pushed it aside because I thought, everyone knew so much more than me. I thought I was a little behind. I wasn't that confident, but as I built my confidence through production design, I realized, I do know a lot and I could take on this next challenge. And that's why I made Fuzzite Fighters. I wanted to make something fun, something not serious as my first film, just to see if I could really. Well, what originally inspired Fuzzite Fighters was my twin brother, actually. He would probably hate me if I said this, but he would take this stick in our backyard and just swing it around and pretend to, like, fight these, like, evil monsters, like, to to a pretty late age, which is the embarrassing part. But I was always so, I was a very imaginative kid, but, I was also really rooted in realism. And I was like, that's like, I can't actually see these things, but I believe he could. And he would just sit out there and just fight these things. And I was like, what is he seeing? And that originally inspired Fuzz-Eye Fighters, which is like, what if they're just these creatures, like as if a kid made them, or like, out of kids' socks. Like I used to make these sock puppets with my mom, and we would like cut up socks and sew them together. Imagine like one of those that just like spiraled out of control with like kids' imagination. And so it's these kids that just discover it, and they can only see him through these goggles. And they have to kind of choose whether or not to take it seriously or to just, pretend it doesn't exist. And that's Fuzz-Eye Fighters.
I think it's interesting that you both directed and designed the film, because I interviewed what feels like forever ago, it was probably over a year ago, Jackson Varney, who is a very talented production designer, and he directed his thesis film. And I'm pretty sure he had a production designer on there, so it wasn't him. Yes. But I think that is an interesting conversation, like going from this one position to the other, and that feeling of not wanting to give up that control. I feel like it's my comparison would be... Yeah, exactly. I feel like that would be if I wrote someone and gave it to someone else to direct, which I cannot imagine myself doing, at least at this stage. You know what I mean? So, did you even like consider working with a production designer? Because again, that's just like double the amount of things on your plate to not be able to like pass that off to somebody.
Right. I did consider it. Actually, in Fuzz-Eye Fighters, I didn't consider it. I thought I am going to give myself the opportunity to design another film.
There you go.
But for Women from the Garden, I definitely considered it, because it was a big task in Fuzz-Eye Fighters. So when I went into Women from the Garden, I was like, maybe I should have a designer. But then it ended up that I produced it, I directed it, I designed it, and I costume designed it. So I really didn't give up that much control. Just when I'm such a visual person coming from a background in fine arts. And when I see an image, I see all of it. So for Women from the Garden, at least, I storyboarded it all myself as well. Because, in my head, I see these sequences, exactly how they look, the color, the feel, what's in them, what, design elements are in them. I see it as a whole. And so when I go to, write it down and draw it out, I kind of know everything I want. And, I know so many incredible production designers and so many amazing people that would have, gladly trusted with the process. But I just wanted to make them myself. So
did you I guess negative about being a production designer is that you maybe don't, I guess this depends on the project and who you're working with, but you maybe don't have a lot of say into how the set that you've poured your heart into is being shot, so I can see that as being a huge positive of being the director. It's like, okay, I designed the set and here's how we're going to capture it. Did you find that to be really I'm sure that was a nice control to have? It
also really helps in planning, not only planning shots, but planning what I need to get, what I need to buy for the project.
Right.
I know my limits.
Because you can know if it's not going to be needed or anything. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's another thing, when I'm designing someone else's film, most of the time there's wonderful collaboration, and we know, what we're shooting, we know the look we're going for, but you never know on set what's actually going to be seen. If they're going to shoot one way the whole time, or maybe there's a lot of improvisation in film. And so you just never know. So that was a great thing about being both the production designer and the director is I know what I want to shoot. So I know what to fill the space. And so it just kind of was a very easy process for me to just set up that corner. Don't do anything else. No time wasted. Kind
of cutting out the middleman a little bit, you just have all the info. So so after Fuzz-Eye Fighters, moving into your next projects, both as a director and as a production designer, what do you think was the biggest learning lesson you took away from that project?
Honestly, I gotta say that it was just the confidence that I could be a director, and I could also design. I think that was the first project where I was like, oh, I'm actually, I think I could actually do this as production design and directing. So it was just a confidence that was instilled in me that I think helped me grow and learn. I mean, there's a ton of things that, I learned what a script supervisor was on my set. I had no idea what it was, but there's a bunch of different things that I learned. But mainly it was, just that confidence.
So I want to go into the most recent film that you directed, Woman from the Garden. I've been seeing, you've been posting some stills from it, and it looks really, really incredible. I'm very excited to see it. Are you still in post-production for that, or have y'all finished? Like, what's the state of it?
Yes. Right now? Yes. The post-production is going a bit slow with my hectic schedule. It definitely, we were at a really good spot, and then I wanted to change some things around, and then I lost all my time. So it's been a slow process, but we have pretty much picture lock, and color is almost done, and the last step will be sound. So Clea Colin is our sound.
Oh, that's awesome. She's edited like a lot of the episodes for the podcast, so like the sound episodes.
Oh, that's
really
awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, I
Clea's great.
love her. She's great. I'm so excited to work with her. The project is very sound heavy, very like sets, I want like symphonies of just normal natural sounds creating like music almost. So it's going to be a big undertaking, but I'm really excited for it, and I'm hoping to finish sometime, but I'm also trying not to rush myself. It took me like I think 3 years to finally post Fuzzite Fighters. I want to try to not do that this time, but it's
right.
We'll see.
Yeah. I mean, I'm literally, I have this film that I shot in 2018 that's ready to go. All I have to do is go into the credits and change one name, and then it'll be done. And I just like, I gotta get the hard drive. It just, I'm just procrastinating. I guess. Yeah. No, there's really no excuse for it.
Get it. I get it. Yeah. Definitely.
So tell me about like what Woman from the Garden is about, because I personally don't. I mean, I know some of the people that worked on it, but I just don't really know the story behind it.
Yeah, I've kept it a little cryptic. I kind of wanted to just not tell anyone that I was shooting something, shoot it, and then be like, surprise. But I have posted something. So it's a confrontation between like lust and love, desire. It's about a man and his selfish desires in falling in love with a stone statue that is kind of a carbon copy of his girlfriend. So he's the lead actress, Kristen Geary. She plays both the girlfriend and the statue, because it's not about one woman versus the other. It's just about this man and his desire to have more than what he has. And so, and it's, I would say, magical realism. The statue comes to life, and she's very haunting. I would say it's really cool to watch. Our makeup team did fantastic.
Yeah. And didn't Davi shoot it?
Davi did shoot it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's so cool.
Yeah, which
seems like you got
it was great
a
working
good team
with him.
together. Yeah,
definitely.
So, again, you were talking about how like you considered working with a production designer on Woman from the Garden, but it ended up, you actually ended up having more hats. Since you did a similar thing with Fuzzite Fighters, I'm sure, of course, you grew just a lot as an artist and as a filmmaker over those couple of years. But like with that experience, how did it change your perspective going into Woman from the Garden, which is like tonally a big shift from Fuzzite Fighters, so it's a different beast in its own way. How do you think that changed your mindset, having that previous experience?
Yeah, well, Fuzzite Fighters, I think it was definitely like a stepping stone for me. It was a fun, light project, and I felt like if I couldn't portray it exactly how I wanted, at least it was fun. And I ended up, really loving the project. And I think that gave me the confidence to kind of go into different subject matters and just really explore. Like, this film, Woman from the Garden, is more visual. It's more of a visual experience. I spent a lot of time in the pre-production just sourcing inspiration and drawing and painting different scenes from it just to really get into the mindset and the feel of it. So it was much more like feeling based, and I think I was able to do that since I had this confidence of, well, I know I can shoot something, So now
Yeah.
like I want to really just create something.
That's interesting. I think
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad you pointed out the confidence of it, because like
Mm-hmm.
I've heard a few people on the podcast speak on the confidence, and I think more and more every time I hear that is like the most important thing. Like, yeah, you learn
Yeah.
what a script supervisor is, and
Mm-hmm.
of course the technical terms and just the experience of making things is always good. But like you have,
Mm-hmm.
especially as a director, and obviously you know this, you have to be confident,
Mm-hmm.
because like
Yeah.
there's going to be moments in which your crew comes up to you and the world is on fire, and like they look to you for
Mm-hmm.
answers, and if you don't have an answer, then
Right.
things can fall apart really, really quickly. So that
Yeah,
confidence is like
definitely.
is so key. So
Yeah.
do you think like your confidence as you grow as a painter is like mirrored in your
Mm-hmm.
confidence as you grow as a production designer? Like, as the tide rises, both of those,
Mm-hmm.
you become just more confident in both of those mediums.
I think there's a common thread, but I would say that
Yeah.
they are separate in that, I've been an oil painter for 18 years. I There's not a lot that I'm not confident about in the painting world. It's kind of like I've been doing it for so long that I've figured out all the like kinks in working with the
Yeah.
medium, and it is still an ever learning process of discovering your voice and what you want to portray and your style and your look. But I've had
Mhm.
18 years, so that uh, that's the difference. Where in filmmaking,
Yeah.
I'm still relatively, I feel like, young in the filmmaking
Right.
world. I've had 5-6 years, but which seems like a fair bit, but it's not a lot to develop your own like style and voice and figure out,
Yeah.
all of that. And it takes time. And so I definitely think, my confidence as a production designer helps with me as a director and vice versa.
Yeah.
But painting is a little bit of a different ballgame.
So looking at your next project that you direct, whether or not you have like an idea for it, I'm sure it'll happen again.
Mm-hmm.
What is the scenario in which you work with a production designer? Like, do you have a dream scenario? Like if you could clone
Yeah.
yourself or something like that? Like, what is
Yeah.
the scenario in which that works?
I would say the next project I would hire a production designer.
Yeah.
I think I need to just give up that control and let, the incredibly talented people I know
Yeah.
take over, because, at the end of the day, there's all of these roles for a reason, because it
Right.
takes a lot of work and it takes a lot of talent. And, I definitely want to then transition. I mean, my next project, I hope I'll probably do a couple of shorts, but I have about 4 features that I've half written that I'm getting through, and I would love to make a feature in the next several years and just get that one moving. And if I do a feature, I would definitely absolutely have a production designer, because it is a lot of work.
Yeah.
On a short, I can manage it. On a feature,
Right.
there's absolutely no way. And I want to definitely focus on the job directing, because it's a
Yeah.
full job, and
Yeah.
definitely want to separate the two.
I'm glad you brought up features, because you have recently been booked on 2 features as a production designer, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, which is so cool. I remember I saw that on your Twitter, and I was like, I was like living vicariously through you. It was just such a really, really exciting thing. So I know
Yeah.
those are in the early stages, and you of course can't tell us everything about it, but can you just give us a little bit about like how you got booked on them, what you're learning so far, your prep work, and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, they're 2 different projects with 2 different companies and 2 different crews. So the first one is called Wholly Irresistible. It's a script that actually won a screenwriting award, the Nichols Award, through the Oscars, which is pretty exciting.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And I actually just got a text message out of the blue one day that was like, hey, we found you through a mutual contact I had, and we're interested if you want a production design. And at the time, I had actually been offered a job as a gallery curator for Restoration Hardware. I think I can say that now that I turned down the job. So it was a very big turning point in my life, where I had to decide, do I go live in San Francisco, work full-time, have a salary, have benefits, and have it, made? Or do I drop it and go and do what I actually want to do, freelance production design in Atlanta and just hope it works.
Yeah.
And that was a very scary step, but I ended
Right.
up deciding that, you know, I want to be a production designer for feature films. That's the ultimate goal. So I'm being offered that. I should go.
Yeah.
So
There it is.
turned down the job offer, and I am just about to move to Atlanta. But yeah, so that's the first film. It's really exciting. We actually got a pretty exciting crew or cast member locked. I can't say, but very exciting. And yeah, that will shoot. I would say, I think we're starting in June. The second film. Okay. Yeah, so it's June to July, I believe. So I'm already deep into prep right now.
Yeah.
And then the second film is called Pan American, and I don't know how this came to life. Like, I don't know how I got this opportunity, because it is a crazy ambitious project. It is 452 pages, the script.
Whoa, that is crazy. Wow.
Right, and we're shooting in Los Angeles now. So it was originally going to be Texas, but now we're in Los Angeles, New York, and Paris, France, which is,
there you go.
You know, just incredible. But so originally I got the project because I was working on a Hallmark film in Savannah. I did a couple Hallmark films in Savannah. And the second one, the costume designer, I was actually in the costume department. I met her and we talked, and she was like, I'll give you my contact. I'm doing this film. Like, the director's really awesome, and he like writes it, directs it, and stars in it himself. And he's really cool dude. And yeah, so here's the info. And then I got an email that was like, do you want to be the production designer? And I was like, yeah. So
I would have been like, cool. Is this the wrong email? Yeah. Like, I think you said this for the wrong person. Like, yeah,
I was like, was it that easy? Like, no test? Like, I'll give you a test. Right. Like, do you want my resume? Do you want my, what do you need? So I was just
do you
like,
want me to pass the test? Yeah.
No, really. I was like, okay. And so I'm currently in pre-production for both, which is incredibly strenuous, because that one shoots the second one, Pan American, shoots mid-July starting. So as soon as I wrap, I have 2 weeks, and then I go to the next one. So it is back to back.
Wow. Yeah. How insane, and I know you've thought about this, but how insane is it that like you are about to, you were like at the fork in the road, and you were about to go to San Francisco and live like that version of your life. And then this platter of just incredible projects. Just,
I'm pretty sure the universe was like, bonk, bonk, Jenna, wake up. Right.
Hello.
I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
sure.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, I've thought about it, and I could not believe it.
Yeah.
I still can't. Still, every day I send an email, and I'm like, I'm still hired, right? Like, you haven't changed your mind yet.
Yeah,
like,
this isn't a joke.
Ashton
Kutcher, where are you? Yeah,
right, exactly. But it's been really incredible. The 2 crews so far are like very awesome, and everyone's very accommodating. And they're both relatively small projects in the scheme of films, but very, very exciting that I get to be a department head and I have all this responsibility. And it's a lot, but it's a lot of fun.
So are you like, about how big is your department on those projects?
So the first one's smaller. I'll have a few people helping me out. They are hiring them for me. It's a really cool studio. It's called Local Cinema Studios. And their whole idea is that they want to mentor students. So I'm actually going to be mentoring students.
Oh,
those
cool.
will be my crew members, which is, I was like, dang, like, I feel like I'm a student myself, but like, it's really, really cool that I'll get to give, as much information as I know to pass it on. So that'll be really cool. So I think I'll have about 3 people, which is it's a small art department. But it's definitely doable in the scope of the project. And the second one, I I'll have 2 people that are just dedicated by my side, like a prop master and an art department coordinator that will go with me through every location. And then I'll have several art set dressers. Several set dressers that allows like what role? Several set dressers. My brain. Several of those that will just help out for like sourcing items. Because I'm going to LA. I don't know any prop shops. I don't know what's best there. So I'll find local help to find the best places and to help us dress it. Because both projects are small and they're so they're trying to keep, crew down so that they can pay everyone appropriately, which is amazing. But I think I have enough help to make it work. I've done crazier with a lot less.
You're right.
Exactly. Through art school. So I feel like anything I can tackle now. It's really exciting though.
Man, well, congrats. That's really, really awesome. I'm glad that's happening because that's very exciting. So as you're in the midst of prep for these projects, are you harking back to any lessons you learned or just like times on these other projects, whether it's as a director or as a production designer, that you think specifically prepared you to do this? Because obviously, I mean, we joke like, did they send it to the wrong person? Obviously they didn't. Like you deserve it and earned it, and like your work speaks for itself. But do you think back to like any moments or any specific lessons that you feel like kind of made a domino effect of you arriving here?
Yeah, definitely. I think the first thing, of course, is just, one time when I was just, figuring out what production design was, my dad gave me a production design book and I started reading it. And the first thing that really popped out at me was, I don't know if I'm misquoting it, I hope I'm not, but it read production designers. It takes 60% management, 30% creative, and 10% luck. I was like, that is the formula. And so I think just having that in my head, knowing that, as well as I was able to interview a few production designers just throughout my years at college. I actually got to email Doug Chang, who designed Rogue One, and he's a creative executive at Lucasfilm. So
wow.
That was, I mean, he's my idol. So that was like the coolest moment of my life. And he told me basically like, if you want to draw and you want to do concepts, be a concept artist. If you want to manage an army of people, be a production designer. And I was like, wow, cool. Yeah. So I love the managing part of it. I'm very like, that's a part that I really do enjoy. I'll spend 12 hours going on a breakdown, sending emails, just Googling, researching, doing all of that. And I find that just as enjoyable as, the actual like visual part of it. Luckily, because I think it does make the formula of a production designer. So just having that in mind going into these features, because it's a lot, I've broken down the scripts, the set dressings, the props, the construction, the graphics, everything into all their categories, and, then you have the added like logistical elements of, I'll actually say on Juno, the commercial that we shot last September, I think was the biggest kind of learning opportunity in the sense of like logistics for production design for the art department. That project, it was the first time I actually used a rental house, actually second time I used a rental house, but just planning those logistics for that set. I mean, it was a medieval set. We basically brought in 2 trailerfuls of dirt. We laid down 9 tarps to cover the gravel because we didn't want to ruin the location's gravel. We put all of the mud on top of the tarps, and then that way the water would sit and pool up, and it would have this beautiful old gross look of pooled water. And then you have to think, what do we do with the dirt after? We have to move it. So, so then we had to like shovel it into buckets, take it down to the river. I mean, it was excruciating, labor intensive, and it was great. And it was just figuring out like, then we have a prop pickup then, and we like ordered stuff to be picked up at Home Depot, and just like all these moving parts of where everything needs to come from. That I think was the biggest lesson in that sort of sense, and taking that into these next features, especially the second one I'm doing, because we're traveling to LA, New York, and Paris. Those are locations that I've never personally shot at before, but luckily I know a lot of incredible people that I've been able to reach out to and say, you know, what are the best places to buy furniture here and all that. But figuring out those logistics are going to be very hard, but very fun.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, what an incredible, like, I love, I think we all love whenever projects, like when you're filming on location in a new place, like it's going to be such a cool experience to be in LA filming in New York and Paris. I mean, what a cool way to spend your time and do the thing that you love. So that's really, really cool. Yeah. I'm glad you brought up on Juno, because that's a really, really awesome commercial that you designed. So, you know, again, the interest, or one of my interests in your role as a production designer is like the commercial world versus, you know, like your short films and your features. You're still, I think the responsibility is still similar, but with On Juno, like you're selling a product, obviously. So, you know, again, we'll show some footage on screen from that commercial, and it was like a very, very big, you know, effort, and it looks great. But how do you change your approach, like in your prep work, whenever you're thinking it's an advertisement, you know what I mean? Like it all needs to connect with people and convince them to buy something.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it is a big switch. I mean, everything of course relates, and it is very similar, but it is, the first commercial that I ever did was through the Coca-Cola Regal Films program. And so we were the winning film that year, 2019, I believe. And what was cool about that was I think it was kind of like a crash course for me for commercial work, where I got to work with the executives of Coca-Cola and have like a contact, you know, an email chain back and forth with them, where I would send them designs and they would send stuff back. And so I gave them this whole, you know, lookbook, and they were like, this looks great. Take out all of the blue. Blue is Pepsi. And I was like,
whoa.
I was like, oh my God, you're so right. I was like, okay, don't worry, I'll remove it. But I was like,
take out the blue.
So it's like, take out the blue. So you got to be really conscious about like what you're putting on front of the camera. And then, you know, our food stylists, we had a couple amazing people. Lila, for one, that was part of our food styling team. And it was just very particular. You know, you have to make sure the product looks incredible at all times. And there's all these tricks, and like, you know, use glycerin instead of water for water droplets, and all these different things to make it look perfect. And so you really have to think at the forefront of your mind is the product, versus in the script, it's, you know, the forefront is the story. Like you're trying to do the story and the director's vision the most justice, where in commercial, it's like the brand, the product. That is what you're doing justice to. So very similar, but definitely like you have to shift gears in that. Yeah. Well,
it paid off, because I looked at Tristan, like the Ad Milk website, and I looked through all the different materials for the ad, and it just looks like a incredible effort, and it totally pays off because the ads look super great. So, you know, awesome work on that. So you have recently been posting about all of these awesome publications that you've been in for your paintings, which has been really cool to see. Can you explain what some of those are about?
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, it was very exciting this year. I got an email basically that said, we want to interview you for not only for Open Studio, but for Modern Luxury magazine, which is the branch that the publication ended up on was San Francisco Magazine, which is a smaller branch of Modern Luxury. And at the time I thought it was just a publication for Open Studio, like a, you know, ad. And then on the interview, they told me that I was a featured artist, and I had no idea. No one told me, you know, and I was like, oh, and so he's like, oh, I had no idea you didn't know. And so we talked about that for a bit, but I was chosen to be, I think, one of 7 featured artists for this year's SCAD Open Studio, which was, you know, really incredible. They did a great job of like pushing publications everywhere. I got, you know, an image of my painting on Juxtapose magazine, which is, incredible. It's one of the, it's a really cool art magazine. And so yeah, the interview that I gave, Peter Relic is his name. He took that and, SCAD ran with it, and Modern Luxury, San Francisco magazine, they ran with it. And it was just really, really cool. But yeah, so that was probably the most recent accolade that I've got for painting. In the past, I'm actually up for my second grant. I haven't received it yet, but I'm able to apply for my second grant through the same foundation that I just previously won my first grant through this May. So that's now. We're in May. So I can, like, wow. So yeah, I can apply to that, and hopefully I'll be awarded a second one, which would be incredible. It's a great foundation that allows you 3 grants through your lifetime. So once you get the first one, you're automatically up for 2 more, which is, an amazing thing. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, those are the most exciting things I'd say in the painting world for me.
Yeah, that's so cool. So this is, again, I'm glad that this is kind of like our first time talking, because I'm naturally curious about these things. So it's exciting to, like I said, learn along with the audience. We talked about your painting career, your career as a production designer, your career as a director, these features you're working on. You've kind of got a lot of irons in the fire. So whenever you like zoom out the 30,000 foot view, what is the Jenna Tooley dream?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say I have a lot of dreams.
Good.
I'm a dreamer. I would say that I definitely, like, through my time in college and just through all these different medias, I've kind of discovered that I don't want to have any limits to what I define myself as an artist. I think it's the artist that defines the mediums in which they work with, not the other way around. I don't ever want to be defined as one or the other. I think that's the beautiful thing about the arts, is they do translate to each other so beautiful across, disciplines. And I think that there's like a richness to work that has, context in other mediums. And I would say that my ultimate probably career goals, I want to be a designer for sure. I want to direct, and I want to paint. So it's really just setting no limits for myself and just taking every opportunity as it comes. Like, if I want to take a year to go to Tuscany and, do a program for painting, maybe I do that. Or, if I want to direct something, I just want to enrich myself with as much art as I can.
Well, I think you might have already answered this next question that I have, but I'm curious if you can like build on that a little bit. I think I'm glad that you're discussing like all of these different things that you want to do, because I think maybe to some people in art school, or when they're trying to figure out what their creative career is going to be, like it can almost feel that you have to decide on one thing, because it's really hard to achieve in any of these things. It's hard to be a painter, it's hard to be a director, it's hard to be a production designer, to do all three, as you of course I'm sure know. It's also hard. It's like it all combines on top of each other. So what advice would you have to people who maybe are just starting out at school and they are exploring these multiple paths, and there's a lot of crossover, and they worry that they have to choose. I guess it's kind of like the question of like, what advice would you give yourself 4 years ago?
No, that's a great question. It would definitely be, don't put yourself in a box, and don't let anyone's ideas of you put yourself in a box too. So don't put yourself in a box, and don't let others put you in a box, because you can do it all. And you'll get hounded at so many times. You got to specialize if you want to make it. You got to specialize if you want to make it. And that, I would say, is good advice to a certain extent, but you can do more. You shouldn't put limits to yourself. And putting yourself into a box will limit your creativity, and allowing others to put you in a box will, completely just diminish your creativity and your confidence. I definitely let other people's perceptions of me put myself into a box for a long time. And it took me a while to, try these things, try to direct, and try to, do bigger projects and try to, paint as well as do design. And I got told a lot of times to just either switch majors or to just pick one, or, you have to choose.
Right.
But so it was definitely a process, and I wish someone had told me, like, don't listen to anyone, don't put yourself in a box, and just really, explore everything that's out there. Because one thing will lead to another too. Sometimes I get opportunities in painting, and then someone's like, oh, I saw that you paint, but I also looked on your website and you film. Do you want to be a part of this film? There's opportunities across the board. And so limiting yourself is limiting your opportunities as well.
Yeah, I have learned so much by like my own experience of graduating and job hunting, and also just like watching my peers go through the same thing. Like, I used to imagine networking just meant like, and I say used to, I mean like years ago before I went to college and everything. But I thought networking just kind of meant like kissing up to people. I didn't really know what it meant. What I've learned is that like it means like creating good work, and people will recognize that, and like being a good person to work with. Super important. I mean, I learned some really valuable things in my fine arts program. Actually, like they told. My battery's dying. Oh no. Okay. They in my fine arts program, we took a lot of classes on like branding and entrepreneurship and professional practices. And what's really, really important for young artists, especially in the wake of social media, is you have to brand yourself. You have to put yourself in the best light, because you can, people can refer you, and that's all great. But at the end of the day, like, you really need to be your own advocate and be your own spokesperson, and you have to document your work professionally. That was something my dad instilled in me very young. When I was a painter, properly document your work, get a nice camera, get nice lighting. If you don't have those things, ask to borrow from a friend, and, do your work justice of taking good documentation of it, and then presenting it online or wherever, or having a private portfolio, whatever it is. Present yourself in the best light with the best materials you can. Do your work justice. I like that a lot. I think that's a perfect way to end this episode. Jenna, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down and talk to me. It's been really exciting to just learn about you and your work. I've kind of admired from afar, so it's exciting to have you on the podcast and share that perspective with the audience. Again, congrats on all of those feature films. I have no doubt that they will lead to other feature films. So hopefully in a few years from now, we'll get to interview you, and you'll be a big old successful feature production designer.
Thank you so much. I've had such a great time being on, and I love your podcast, and I'm just so honored that
thank you
wanted to talk to me. So
yeah, absolutely. You're welcome anytime. Thank you everybody for listening. If you're listening to the audio only version, you should check out the video on our YouTube channel. New episodes come out every Monday at 9 a.m. We've also got our Patreon. The link to that is in the description. And Jenna, thank you again, and we'll see y'all in the next one.
Thank you.